Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrik Juranek, and I'm from Startup Disrupt, and it's my pleasure to be right now with you and to co-organize amazing events such Fashion Disrupt, Streetwear. And what is Startup Disrupt about? In Startup Disrupt, we are trying to build a global startup community for innovators, entrepreneurs, startup founders, and other technology enthusiasts. And we are doing so because we believe that if you are trying to do something, trying to change the world around you, that this kind of support, and guys on the platform who can be here beneficial to you and support you, it's really important. And it wouldn't be possible for us to co-organize events like this without our partners and sponsors who are supporting us on this journey, like Footshop, Check Invest, Grow with Google, FFK Legal, LXVI, and a bunch of others. So thank you very much. And right now, I would like to pass the word to Pavlina Loženská, who will be right now the moderator, and as well, she is together with us, one of the organizers of Fashion Disrupt series. So Pavlina, stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Patrik. I'm really delighted that you have joined our Fashion Disrupt series. This is the first of the series of the events where we will really focus on how fashion is being shaped by technology and how it's being shaped by the changes in business. Today, I will introduce you to 8 amazing speakers that we will have today. First panel will be dedicated to streetwear and its development. The second panel we will discuss design and sustainability. We will have 2 amazing speakers coming to us discussing what it means to design footwear. And the last but not least, we will have 2 pitches coming from fashion industry and showcasing where the industry is heading and what's next in the one. But first, before we actually kick it off, I would like to shape our discussion, our debate by a few facts. I will introduce you to 6 facts about fashion industry just now, and I will also showcase 6 different facts that are shaping our streetwear debate for today, before I actually will be joined on stage by 4 different people with 4 different perspectives on where streetwear is going next. So first one, by 2026, Gen Z and millennials will actually occupy 60% of luxury market. Their values, their behaviors, and their expectations from brands are definitely changing. They're very, very different than what baby boomers and Gen X expected from brands. Already in 2017, this generation was responsible for 85% growth in luxury items. And in 2020, 50% of luxury customers were under the age of 30. So definitely we will be talking today about how much money they are spending, and it's really happening with us. According to Business of Fashion, 45% of fashion executives see COVID and economic crisis as the biggest challenge in 2021. And I think nobody is surprised by this number. It's really something that is expected to influence us. And no wonder that 1/3 of fashion executives think that the digital is going to be the biggest theme for upcoming months. More than 70% of them expect their businesses to invest 20% and more into digital, to grow 20% and more compared to 2019. And even the traditional luxury players like Dior or Chanel, who actually opposed digital before COVID, suddenly are going into this industry, are suddenly entering that space. And I think that's going to be really exciting to see. What we are having next is definitely the impact of COVID. According to McKinsey, fashion's economic profit is forecasted to drop by 93% in 2020. And if we look at fashion sales in 2021, they're supposed to be down by 10 to 15%, which is going to be a huge impact on the industry. Everybody will be thinking what is actually going to bring them that return on investment, what is going to bring them back the invested money. And that's why we will also see digital growing, since you have a lot of insights and analytics coming from that channel. Obviously, customer behavior has changed thanks to COVID. For example, Chinese customers who would spend annually $150 million when traveling, when spending on luxury, are supposed to be now in China due to travel restrictions. So they're suddenly not spending abroad, they're spending on the local market. And it's really going to be something that all the brands need to kind of explore. 45% of fashion executives believe that market redistribution will be the top theme of 2021. You could have relied on the French market, but suddenly can't anymore. You could have relied on Chinese customers traveling. You can't anymore. And if we look at what the fashion executives are thinking about when this is going to lift, when they are coming back, they expect 2 to 3 years for us to come back to the lifting travel restrictions and getting the money back from the Chinese or Asian customers. So I think this is really getting us to the topic back again to e-commerce, that for many brands, e-commerce will be the only possibility how to be present in the market. And last but not least, when it comes to fashion, of course, the strong guys are coming stronger and the small guys are coming smaller. Fashion industry value is currently concentrated among the top players, and the COVID year has showed that perspective even brighter. So I think for small brands, it's really we are going to talk about consolidations. We have seen Footshop acquiring Queens in the Czech Republic, and we are really seeing a lot of, like, for example, that big mega deal of Alibaba, Farfetch, Kering, and Richmond coming together and trying to conquer the world together is really going to be something that will be very prominent in fashion industry and the proportion. And last but not least, definitely sustainability is top of mind of the customers. 3 in 5 customers say they consider environmental choices when it comes to purchasing goods, but still less than 1% of the products are recycled into new garments. I know we have seen, for example, Space Hippie sneakers created by Nike, but still there is a little that is being done in the industry to address climate change, to address sustainability issues. And that is definitely going to be one of the biggest challenges. And if it wasn't for COVID, that might have been the biggest one, actually. Let's talk about streetwear. I have looked into Hypebeast, High Snobiety, and other case studies, other data, and what they are how they are talking about actually customers that are focused on streetwear. One thing that is definitely, I think, interesting is that streetwear has gone mainstream. More than 40% of Gen Z are identifying their style as streetwear or hip hop. And if we look at the trendsetters, the number is even higher. So you would have half of the young people who say, we are shopping streetwear, which is definitely like not a niche thing anymore. And I think we will see that in a minute. 20% of luxury customers have used resale platforms in the last 2 months, and it's 50% more likely among the trendsetters anymore. So we see actually platforms like Goat, Vester Collective, Grailed, StockX really growing. We have seen massive investments coming to those. And we will definitely see even more with Gen Z and their sustainability perspective. Also, not only sustainability perspective, but definitely there will be a huge growth in resale platforms. On average, during the lockdown, during spring, for example, ThredUp or Vester Collective, their traffic was up, the purchases were up by 30%. So definitely a big one. Even though when we're talking about Gen Z, it's a pretty young generation. The oldest ones are 25. 1/3 of them have spent more than $500 on apparel and footwear item in last 12 months. They are spending 5 times more than other customers if they are interested in streetwear. So we have really strong purchasing power, and that purchasing power is also connected to their expression. 84% of people who are high snobiety readers define themselves by their style. They consider their style as part of their identity. And I think this is like why they are willing to spend so much, why they are willing to invest so much. Sneakers are definitely top of the game, and I'm very happy to welcome here guys who are in love with sneakers, as you will see in the moment, because they're the key product for those young customers. Sneakers are followed by tops, t-shirts, usually hoodies, and so on, and by accessories. When it comes to global perspective, I will be definitely asking about the Czech Republic, but I somehow expect a very similar number. They're very influential. Actually, again, if you look at, for example, readers of high snobiety, they have 5 times more followers than an average Instagram user. In general, Gen Z uses social media for discovery. If we look at the purchase journey, 50% of the purchase journey is actually spent on inspiration. So really kind of exploring what's possible in there, which is much higher than any other customer journey of the generations before them. So the brands really have to allocate a lot of money, especially in digital, to really kind of serve that customer for a long time. They have to focus on brand building. I think we have seen Adidas, who was debating again and again how they made a mistake by investing all their money into performance channel. We will see a lot of brand investment as well. And that is very much confirming what high snobiety found out. Instead of merely buying into a product, the young luxury customer is buying into a lifestyle or a community. For them, 85% of young customers say that what clothes represent, what they represent, what's the lifestyle connected to those clothes, is as important as the design of the clothes. And I think that's really, really fascinating. And they are looking for brands which are connected to communities. We are authentically connected to communities. 89% of Gen Z say that they can easily identify if the brand is lying, if they're not authentic, or if the brand post is sponsored by an influencer or not. So those were the kind of like quick remarks, quick data, and now I would be happy to jump into our panelists. We will be looking into streetwear, as I mentioned. We will be looking into design and sustainability, and we will be having startup pitches. So I'm very, very excited now to be joined on stage by our and I will be welcoming Tomáš Velický, Petr Kováč from, yes, Tomáši, hi.
Hey, I'm good.
Okay. Kovo, how are you?
Thank you, very good.
Yeah, Michal, how are you?
Hello, nice to meet you all. I'm good, thank you.
And Petr?
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. And I will start by welcoming you to Fashion Disrupt by asking you a simple question. And I'd like to ask all of you to answer it. What was your journey to streetwear? How did you get to where you are now? And Tomáš, I will start with you.
Thanks. My journey was, I guess, super easy because I get to streetwear through skateboarding. So it is one of the defining subcultures of the streetwear, actually. So I was not that hard. And later in my 20s, I started working for Vans as a marketing coordinator for Czech and Slovakia and Hungary. And later on, I moved to wholesale as a brand manager of Footshop. And now I've been working for a while, still in streetwear, e-commerce and retail, but also several other projects, including influencers, musicians, and petrol heads, and also I'm still in skateboarding. So
a lot of things, a lot of hats you're wearing. Thank you for that. Kovo, would you go next?
Yeah, sure, thank you. So I started basically digging into the streetwear scene or taking care of sneakers mainly right after I finished the university. So my first job where I was employed by my friend Petr Hejduček, who is the founder of Footshop. So I started working with him on the graphic design early in the early age of company of Footshop. I was working also for different clients because Footshop couldn't afford my work at the early stage. So so that was the beginning, and the passion basically came out of that. And before that, I was just looking at sneakers that I liked. And my parents were buying some interesting sneakers for me when I was younger, but the real spark came when I moved to Prague and started working for Footshop almost 9 years ago. So yeah, and I changed a lot of positions. I started as a graphic designer and moved to different ones as a sneaker buyer, and then I ended up coordinating and giving the creative direction for our own production collaborations and private label basically for Footshop right now. So that's my occupation.
Wow, I will be definitely asking about those because I believe you have a lot of secrets to tell. Peter, could you go next?
Of course. I think I got into streetwear the way usually people get into it on the street. Like that's how it should be. I had to hustle to get my first Jordans, and that's why I started reselling. And through resell, I met with friends with mutual interest, music and skateboarding, and then I realized that I got into the whole online resale sphere, and I think that's it for me.
Thank you. I will be definitely addressing resale based on the data I've presented. And Michal, what about you?
Hello. Yeah, I started my streetwear journey as one of the first Slovakian streetwear journalists, along with Peter Hlavicka here. Then I moved to Footshop in its early days, where I basically connected culture with fashion. And since it was an early stage of Footshop in those days, before the huge investments and stuff, I was kind of able to be all round in marketing. I had the pleasure to work with Kovo up here, with buying and stuff like that. And then I moved to Queens, which was the first streetwear retailer in Czechoslovakia and the first Nike sportswear account ever in Czechoslovakia, where I connected fashion with culture as well, and also had the opportunity to be kind of a marketing all-rounder. I spent many years there, and then I moved to culture marketing for different brands. So I'm not really currently active in fashion, but I've spent a huge portion of my life there, and I'm really looking forward to go back sometime.
Thank you. It seems like you all have a really long journey. So my first question is quite obvious. And how has streetwear developed from your perspective? And Tomáš, I will start with you definitely. Like, could you comment on your own journey from sneakers, skateboarding, but also if you see like general technology changes, because I know you're very much interested in that.
Well, I mean, I remember those days when dunks were just, bought by skaters and used by skaters, and not many people outside the community really knew what is going on. It's almost 20 years ago, actually. So if you compare it with today's hype, actually with dunks, it just boomed. You know, it's exploded, and it's massive right now. The whole streetwear changed into mainstream, and even though it was like 10 times every year somebody just saying that streetwear is dying, and it's on the way down, but it never happened, and it's not gonna happen because it's so big right now. There's so much money just invested into it that it will just going bigger and bigger. And the nice thing on streetwear is that it could really play with other trends outside from itself. You know, it could consume whatever it wants from outdoor. connecting together with fashion, because it's called sometimes already street fashion. So I just will be growing, because there is no way back, actually.
Kovo, I would like to see your perspective, because you have actually kind of survived the growth of Footshop, and kind of taking over the Czech market. I don't think there's anybody who's able to compete with you just right now, and now you're taking over Europe. So how has that developed for you? Have you seen that niche perspective at the beginning and then going mainstream? And what's next?
Yeah, that's very true. What you are saying, and as you are saying, it started as a very passionate small project, and as Michal also mentioned, that we were from the very beginning building it together with a small team of people, and it was very different on one side, but it was like the essence of it stayed until today, because I mean, if you want to keep the business somehow original and unique enough, you need to stay authentic, and I think authenticity is one of the main points of, or main benefits that Footshop has over the years, and still kept it up until some amount, and it's that's for me, that's the main and the most important part, which is important in terms of change. So yeah, you need to adapt, obviously, to everything that's coming and that came in the years. And in the beginning, we were trying to, I mean, sell let's say 12 pairs of Yeezy, the best way, the best correct way to kind of avoid resellers. No offense, but nowadays we really understand that resell is a big part of the business, and the whole thing is just connected through and through. So yeah, it changed. We learned a lot of things, and we are trying to adapt to what's coming. We are trying to listen to our customers. We are trying not to judge anybody, because there is a lot of hate basically in the streetwear community and the streetwear business towards let's say, if I can say, towards the younger customers. But the truth is that the younger customers are one of the biggest groups that's actually buying in streetwear. So it's not about like judging people that they don't know some OG stuff that was happening 20 years ago, but it's about educating them and reminding them and pushing it forward in a positive vibe. So yeah, so that's something probably that's happening, and yeah, so it changed, but it didn't change in different aspects. So that's how I see it.
I love it. The other day I was watching a YouTube series about the origin of dunks, and there were like 50-year-old guys talking about the origin of dunks, and I can imagine they were looking at us when we were in our 20s, and they were like, those kids, they have nothing to say about this. And I think now we are looking at the kids and we're like, no, they have nothing to say about it. So it's kind of like this overall thing coming back to each other. But definitely I'll be coming back to the community. But you mentioned one thing, and that is this kind of fight with resellers, which has transformed into maybe a partnership. But I would like to ask Peter, what's your viewpoint on this development?
If you mean just on a topic, I think I can't explain it quite simply. But on the topic of the aforementioned question about the development of streetwear overall, I think that there's no streetwear nowadays. When you can't go to the streets, when you can't wear your sneakers in the streets, when you can't see anybody wearing the fresh stuff in the streets, that's not a streetwear. Nowadays, everything is internet wear, because we wear the clothes for the internet, we wear the clothes for our Instagram feeds, and even if we go out for a few hours just to catch a fresh air, we post a picture on the internet. We don't flex our new sneakers on the streets. So everything is internet wear nowadays.
I love that perspective. By the way, there's a McKinsey study that since the moment that social media was created, the number of items of clothing that we have on our wardrobes went up by 60% because we need to post outfits on our social media. But definitely, I would like to ask, maybe Kovo, back to you. It's impossible to avoid COVID nowadays. And Peter, you can comment on it as well. Has that affected your sales and has that affected customer behavior?
Yeah, I mean, when the COVID first hit, the first thing which was impacted by it was basically the internal structure and processes and everything that needed to adapt very, very fast. Connected to that, because we were really expecting a high drop in sales. But the truth was that with some changes in the plan and in budgeting and everything, which was really, really a few tough months for the whole company and for all the people who were involved, we kind of sustained. And what was our big surprise, the drop in the interest in streetwear was really only when the kind of global pandemic started, when the virus spread outside of China and the big boom started in Italy from the beginning. That was basically the only time when it really fell. And we had, I think it was like the second or third month of the last year when we really seen a big drop in sales. But shortly after that, like few weeks after that, it was really growing back almost to its full potential that was happening before. So I mean, it was not completely ideal, and it was not 100% as we expected it will be, but we somehow managed to survive, and the customers didn't let us down. And as Peter was saying about the internet wear, which I really like the point of view. I think that yeah, it's about that right now. So people still are at home. They are not spending money for I don't know, clubbing or whatever, or traveling that much right now, and they have the cash to treat themselves. And it doesn't matter if it's a new sporting gear or new sneakers or new more expensive clothes that they always wanted, and there was no budget for that. So yeah, so it's not so critical as it might look like. Sorry, but I'm talking about online, of course, not about retail. In retail, it's completely different story, obviously.
One follow-up question: have the categories changed? Because what I've seen in global studies is that it shifted maybe towards sportswear, like people are working out at home or something like. So have you seen that change or not?
For sure. One example that I can definitely that I noticed also on myself is that I'm buying way more outdoor shoes than I was before that, and it's the sneaker adaptation of outdoor sneakers or boots or whatever. But I think that's very notable, and also running sneakers, and then obviously some sweatpants and sweatshirts and so on. So yeah, so comfortable and sporting goods and so on. It's definitely boosted in these categories.
I think we will be definitely coming back to outdoor as the driving force of the maybe next generation of streetwear. But now I'm definitely getting back to Petra, because resale was about like maybe the kids standing in front of the shopping malls. So at some point, I mean, I'm making a joke here, but still, like, how has that changed? How has resale changed in past few months?
I would say that from that point where you could see kids standing in front of the Supreme store on Complex magazine, nowadays it's all about the alternative investments. Even when the crisis hit, there were hundreds and thousands, millions of people buying sneakers just to make a profit. So because they knew that their jobs are not guaranteed, and they knew that there is still a hunger for new Yeezys or Off-Whites, and resale is just an investing nowadays. Same as with the GameStop stocks. When it hit, everybody was buying GameStop. Like, who knows a shit about stock market? Not me, but I bought it. And,
yesterday
I bought some more.
Yeah.
Like,
so
why not?
So it's like having, sorry. So it's like having a StockX app and Robinhood app in your phone, and you're basically treating them the same. Okay.
Of course, like I've spent more on stock than on sneakers in the last 6 months, and I'm no stockbroker. It's just an investment for me.
Okay, so we clearly know how you guys spend the quarantine, like, you know, selling stocks and sneakers. What's next for resell? Do you think it will be more commoditizing, that I will be kind of comparing my Dunks and my gold and my Boeing investment? You think that's where it's heading?
Everything together. Pokemon cards, GameStop, Dunks, I don't know, Travis Scott cereals. What the fuck is resell? Like, I'm reselling Travis Scott cereals, like fucking food. I'm reselling food. What the fuck does it mean? It's a business. We want to make money.
I know. I bought a head-on Preston toothpaste, so I'm on your side definitely with the weirdness coming in. Okay, definitely coming back to Michal, because Michal, you haven't, but definitely Tomáš, I will be pinpointing that question at you. I really loved how Kovo was talking about the importance of community, connecting to culture, connecting to like kind of grassroots movement. How have you seen the development? Because Michal, you work with Addict, you used to be the influencer person in Queens. So how has the connection with culture and the demand for authenticity showed in streetwear in the last few years? And how has this changed actually?
I think it may be not that hot nowadays, but a few years ago it was an absolute must, and I think it crucially helped to build, for example, Footshop's brand, who spent a lot of time and money on various events. Footshop used to have events like nearly every week, or maybe even twice a week, and it attracted hundreds or thousands of people. And at that time, I remember myself questioning if it really had any sense to do so many events, and it obviously did. And building the community was extremely important back in those days. We also did it in Queens. I did my best to connect Queens with best available culture personas at the time, and I think it worked out pretty well. And I think it's kind of questionable if it's so important like nowadays, mainly because even the culture personas and the influencers the brands used to connect with due to their relevance and because they really meant something to the people, even the influencers thinking has transformed into something that is measurable, something that's measured in conversion rates, something that has its roots in business as well. So it may not be that much important nowadays, but I still think it's an absolute must for a relevant brand to be connected with relevant streetwear personas from culture, or maybe just pure Instagram influencers. But I still think it is, but it's not that hot as it used to be back in those days. I loved those times. It was beautiful, and it was a lot of effort put in all the stuff, in all those events, in all those connections with influencers. I loved it, and I think it really did its job. I think it helped all those brands I've mentioned, definitely.
Tomáš, I'm definitely asking this question to you, and it's not only about the community, because since you come from the skateboarding community, which is closely connected to that, but also you worked for Buns, which is very famous for its collaborations, even within like communities. So how did you work with that? And could you even share the business perspective from that part?
Okay, I just want to first, I want to say that I agree with Michal that the building and linking stores and building the community really helped the culture. Like 5-6 years ago, it was really crucial. And nowadays it's a little bit more about hype than the stories behind. But it is still crucial, and I hope those days will come back because I really enjoyed the time. Regarding the question, I will speak about Vans because Vans is built on the on subcultures. The brand itself really I would say they don't need them nowadays, but it is the legacy which is crucial for them to stay relevant. And as I have a chance to speak with Steve van der Ren 2 years ago in Bratislava, actually, he's the vice president of activations globally, and the son of the founder. He mentioned that they are like super big nowadays if he compare it to 20 years ago, 40 years ago, but they will never leave the subcultures, the action sport, music, and art, because if anything goes sideways and they will lose the hype in the mainstream, they will still be relevant in those communities and could survive those times because they took care of those communities. They worked together for 50 years. So they will never leave them, and they will still be working together. They did really nice. They just launched really nice campaign, global campaign, when Vans didn't want to do classic advertisement. They select artists from all around the world and just support their projects instead of. So I think it's for the core of the brands. It's really necessary to realize what is the core of the brand. Why are you doing it? And just to keep it with you through all the journey.
Kovo, I think I really would like to follow up, because on one hand we have this like close connection with the community and you really like kind of staying connected with them, but on the other hand you have investors who are pushing you to grow really aggressively and becoming really big. And so how do you balance that? How do you see that perspective? And where I'm maybe heading with this is the question also about the different collaboration, merchandise, and how can you balance all that in one package to stay true with the brand, even though you're trying to get both sides at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. So it is. In first place, it's quite separated, or not separated, but different people are kind of focusing on the different sides of the business. As you mentioned, there is the brand side, and then there is the business side, and somewhere in between is marketing, connecting those two aspects, obviously. So this is how it works in Footshop as well, and we have really skilled people, including the owner Petr Hajduček, who was leading for a long time this business development. Right now, we have Martin Kacer, who is experienced person from the business field, kind of building on what Petr started, and I think we have this covered very, very well. And on the other hand, the brand part, which is the other side, is also very important to sustain and build next projects and next activations. And as Tomáš mentioned, in case of Vans, even before Tomáš was in Footshop, it was very close collaboration with the Vans brand, and I recall our phone calls within one of the first activations that I did for Footshop with Vans, where I kind of co-branded the Vans sneakers, and we wanted to sell 8 pairs, and Tomáš called me that morning that he will send some guys to rip off the branding from the shoes because it's not legal. So yeah, and then we become friends. so yeah, it's still like that. I mean, we are still in very close contact with these brands, and with some brands we are even more in contact, and even in a better contact. Like, for example, it might sound very unbelievable, but it was very hard to find a proper way to Nike for a long time in Footshop, and we always had a good relationship, but due to their guidelines, it was really very complicated to work with them and to create some activations. And although we wanted to create them, and our local agents wanted to create them, it was a lot of the times it was very complicated to go through, higher levels of hierarchy inside the company. On the other hand, with Adidas, it was the brand was supporting us from the day one up until now, and now I'm really glad that we are on this level with a lot of brands like Asics, Vans, Nike, Addict, and all of these brands which we are selling, or like most of the brands are really in a close connection and are really supporting the brand awareness growth. And on the other hand, of course, that's connected to the business side. So when we make some promotions or some activations for these different also communities, as Tomáš mentioned, in connection with Vans, then obviously it needs to reflect on the volume drivers. And when Peter mentioned the off-white collaborations from Nike, in fact, the collaboration is quite limited. Actually, it's not that limited, but there is a huge demand on it, so it looks limited. But what Nike did with it, they actually kind of expanded the design language of white of the design, and it expanded on a wide part of the Nike portfolio. So that's where the business comes. Like the brand comes from the off-white. They also make some money on it, but then they make quite a big chunk of money on the stuff inspired by it, and that same goes for Adidas with Yeezy and so on. So yeah, it's always connected.
It's a question for any of you, but recently I found that 80% of fashion brands that are presenting themselves on Weibo, the Chinese site, are presenting themselves through collaboration. So basically everybody is now running collaboration. It's H&M is currently having 20 collaborations and so on. What's next? Is there a possibility to stand out? Is there a because I feel like, whenever I open sneakers app, like there's like 20 other collaborations coming on and all the time, and it's just like kind of confusing. So what's next for this? Because I think this is confusing for the customer as well.
I can drop just a quick point on that. So from my point of view, the collaborations are really expanding outside of the streetwear and directly streetwear collaborations. As you all can notice, there is a big hype around stuff. Tomáš will talk about that, for example, with the automotive industry, which he's part of right now, and then there is huge collaborations going on. But it's also with I don't know, furniture stores, for example, IKEA and Lego, for example, two huge brands which are not, let's say, streetwear brands, but they really understood how important it is, and there are big partnerships with brands outside of streetwear, and they realize the importance of what does it mean to have these kind of collaborations and connections. And that's obviously kind of striking new type of customer for one and the other segment. So it's only logical to grow and expand and still kind of push it more. But on the other hand, from what I can tell you, for example, the pure sneaker collaborations, like they were, for example, 10 years ago, or maybe, I don't know, 8 years ago, even when we started with Adidas Consortium, it was super hot for people to have a sneaker store collaboration on a shoe with the brand. So, for example, as we had a Footshop and Adidas or Footshop and Kangaroos, it was, if it was 8 years ago, it would be way more kind of hot than it was right now. I mean, it's still very relevant, and it's a huge milestone, at least for our country, and also for Footshop as a brand, and to connect with these kind of big brands. But 10 years ago, when you had a store collaboration with anybody, it was super hot. Right now, you have like, I don't know, 20 of these collaborations every weekend. and it's super hard to create collaborations which will not, let's say, die after 1 or 2 weekends, and people will discuss them further and further. So this is very challenging in terms of the classical sneaker collaborations, and that's why brands are kind of toning down a little bit on the sneaker collabs and like the streetwear collabs, and they are moving forward to these bigger and different kind of collabs. So maybe Tomáš can explain a little bit more about the automotive, which is a great example.
Yeah, if I can jump in. I mean, the automotive is pretty good example because of targeting to the new consumers, to the fresh drivers. So last year we could see the concept of G-Wagon from Mercedes-Benz and Virgil, and everybody was like, wow, that's huge. But then kids stepped in, and the collaboration with BMW, which was super crazy. Like there was like full line of clothing and accessories, and performance cars. You could actually pre-order through Kid site, which is like crazy. Never happened before. And Kid is really like great example of going out of its segment to collaborate with someone else, like for example Coca-Cola or US Olympics team. Lately they launched part of the collection last year, and I guess they are keeping something in stock for Olympics in Tokyo this year. So for the brands outside the streetwear game, those collaborations are way to approach young consumers.
Definitely. I will now.
If I can say just a few words, it is hard to make a good collaboration nowadays, but it is even harder to make a general release. Basic your thing without outside help. Nobody's doing that. Oh, I don't want to be too general or hyperbolic. There are some good general releases, but none of them will get to the stock X. So that's why you do collabs, because it's the same as when Jordan is making every Jordan sneakers storyteller's dream. There is a few pages of story behind every colorway, but when you do a collab, it's a way of storytelling.
Michal, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah. I just wanted to really agree with Peter here, and saying that the hardest discipline in streetwear is to make a sick general release. I think it happens very rarely, and making a collaboration is easy. There is a huge number of them. I think it's already overpowered. I remember the times when making a streetwear collaboration was a huge thing, whatever the outcome was. And nowadays, it's oversaturated. And the statement with the general release as the hardest discipline is very true. That's it. Thank you.
I will now, since we are coming to an end, I will shoot very quick questions and I will ask you to answer like very shortly. I love your stories, guys, but this is like, we have to wrap it up. And we got a lot of questions from our audience. So I will always ask a question. Feel free to kind of jump in if you have something to say. Otherwise, I will direct it to you. So what makes company relevant in streetwear today? How to make it as a brand just right now? Tomáš.
There's so many things. Like background, founder, product mix, brand mix, actually, like a way of communication. How bold are you in campaigns? You know, it's a really there's many ways which or many things which influence the result or how the consumers are feeling you.
Peter, what is the best campaign ever in streetwear? I know you are very knowledgeable, so that's why I'm directing this to you.
I think the best campaign is always no campaign. Like when the campaign happens on its own supreme way. Like the best thing is do nothing and let people make it for you. It's even the smartest campaign and the financially best way of campaigning the product.
Kovo, do you think Footshop can make it to Keith's level, and how soon?
That's a tough question. Well, we are doing our best. I mean, Keith is really a benchmark, and or one of the highest benchmarks there is. And I mean, we need to do our own thing because copying, the stuff that they do, it's not the way, in my opinion. So we need to kind of adjust it to our local needs and possibilities. So maybe some kind of alternative version of Kit in a few years, definitely.
I would be excited to see your sweet shop, guys, like very excited. And Michal, do you think the sustainability movement will affect the streetwear market?
Honestly, no. I think that a streetwear brand that knows its customer knows that it's not really the biggest and most important value for the customer in streetwear. And yeah, there definitely is going to be some good old greenwashing in streetwear, but an actual sustainability, I'm not sure about that. I only can think about like Soland, who made some effort, but Soland is a tiny brand in streetwear. So to be honest, I really don't think so that in upcoming years it will actually affect something.
Okay.
The biggest players are, full sweatshop on. So
sad story. Last but not least, I will ask you all to wrap it up with one thing you are very much excited about in streetwear market. Is there any kind of business model, startup, collaboration, anything kind of like you're very much excited about? Peter, do you want to?
You caught me off guard with that one.
Okay, I will ask with Michal because he looks very excited, and I will come back to you.
Well, currently, I'm usually and really always thinking about brands and their progress, and I'm really curious about how Supreme is going to cope with the investment, with the actual acquisition and stuff, how it's going to affect their designs, how it's going to affect the quality, the distribution chain, the Berlin store, yeah, and also with my really like a hard story with Nike's all conditions gear. The sub brand that really got my heart, and I've spent a lot of time with Nike discussing and taking the brand here, and I'm really curious how is it going to develop. I love the brand. It got kind of weird last month or last seasons, and I'm really curious how it's going to develop.
Kovo?
Well, that's hard to answer, but I partially agree with Michal with the kind of ways that some brands are turning or like changing. For example, the ACG was, as he mentioned, it was a super niche for the outdoor lovers, and nowadays it's a way of Nike to communicate the sustainable approach to the whole business, which is very important, obviously nowadays. So I'm not sure if you know that, but ACG is right now a fully sustainable collection of Nike. So I mean, they are communicating it more on the space hippie and the regrind stuff and the stuff where you see it more obviously, but actually ACG is one of the sustainable things. So that's yeah, for me also very interesting to see. And then I'm really looking forward how the merge between the high fashion and the streetwear will continue in terms of collaborations with high fashion brands. And I'm really curious how this will turn up over the time, because it's more and more like on our eyes, and we are seeing this almost daily. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff to be interested in. Also, I'm really interested what Reddit users will do with the streetwear when they get a piece of something, or you know.
Love it. Tomáši.
Well, I'm just happy and proud that young generation just jumping into the game and starting their own brands like this and by their own rules. That's just bold, and I'm happy to see that.
And Peter?
I realized I'm really looking forward to a new brand that will be resurrected, like the way Chrome Hearts came back and the way Von Dutch came back. I want to see who is going to pick the next brand, and I want to dig in their archives for 2 weeks. I'm really looking forward to that.
Ed Hardy is next, I guess.
Oh.
So you guys
He's there. He's on the list. He's on the list.
So are you sharing any investment advice? What kind of shares of brands which are completely off to buy and, you know, to get rich on?
You should all buy Gap before the first easy drop. Definitely.
Yes.
But yeah. Okay, for me, I'm most excited about women in streetwear, because obviously one of the questions that came was, why don't we have more women on the panel? And it was very, very difficult to find more. So I'm very excited about the brands more going into diverse collections and creating designs that are just for women and including women into this space. So I think this will be something that we will be looking for and forward. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining me. And I will be definitely looking forward to talking to you again in the future. And thanks again. Ciao.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you very much for listening to us. And now I will be welcoming another panel. We will be talking about shoe design. We will be talking about footwear and what does it mean when it comes to sustainable practices. Hi, Sebastian.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, very good. How are you?
Fine, fine.
Where are you connecting from?
From my home. Yes, my little son is also here.
Hi. So, Sebastian, could you a bit introduce your brand, the Net2, because you developed sustainable sneakers. So could you tell us more about it?
Yes, Net2 was founded in 2007 in Munich, and I'm coming from a very old shoemaker family since 1856, so I'm the 6th generation already. And we are also producing for other brands, and we used to design also for other brands like MCM. We also did a lot of collaborations before, and someday we decided that we have so many own ideas and we want to bring more sustainability into the sneaker and high fashion streetwear game that we decided to create our own brand, because we had one idea for a special shoe. And at that time, we didn't know if we want to found an own brand or if we want to maybe sell this design and concept to some other companies. And at the end, we made a lot of research, and yeah, we thought it was a good time to do our own thing.
Thank you. Eliško, thank you for joining us. Could you a bit introduce yourself and what you're working on in Camper?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and excuse me for my late joining the talk. So I'm working recently for Camper and Camper Lab as a designer, and there I'm in charge of the unisex shoes. After I went through the designing for kids or women's shoes, now we are working on innovation projects for Camper Lab as well. And also some visions regarding the sustainable footwear innovation, constructions, and technologies.
Definitely.
And beside that, I some years ago I launched the own footwear brand called Kutulum, which I'm working beside Camper. So that's another thing I do.
Thank you very much, and I'm very, very excited to have you on the thing. I will start with the same question as I posed to the guys, and I'm very curious how the shoe design and shoe industry developed for you, from your perspective in last 10 years. What were the topics? What were the design? What were the customer demands? Sebastian, I will start with you to give Eliška a bit more space to settle down.
Well, one thing is sure, it didn't develop enough to our minds, but that gives us a lot of opportunities to do something new and something better. But if you look at all the material developments and what's going on, then compared to what is possible, you only see very few projects on the market. But that's because there was not too much commitment 10 years ago, but right now everything is changing. Sustainability is becoming more mass approved, and that gives us the possibility to also develop even more projects and higher advanced projects. Because just an example, in the 90s, our company, we already created a compostable shoe, fully compostable, made from 100% natural materials. But at that time, the shoes didn't last as long as they would do nowadays, because the yarns, which were natural and not combined with any polyester or something, they were not as stable as they can be today, even though now they're also natural. And so there are a lot of developments in the industry which make it possible to create much higher advanced sustainable projects than 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Yeah, so that's very exciting, and also that there's more commitment now from people, even more commitment from the consumer than from companies like retailers. So I think right now the consumer is pushing retailers in the right direction because they just don't accept any normal products anymore.
Eliška, from your perspective?
Yeah, I was actually surprised by the reaction from the guys when they were like, sustainability, no way, we don't really see it relevant, like from their perspective as the ones who work in sales and more like communication. But what I can say that we clearly see from Camper side is that there is big demand on the market, more coming from the distribution, which means that the clients and the market is demanding this to the distribution. And then like just talking about the sustainability, which you already pointed out, I feel it's like a main responsibility for anybody who is creating and producing anything. And it should be a part of it without a special focus on communication, because what we are witnessing now, it's sometimes like pure greenwashing. And I also agree what Sebastian has just said, that there have been a lot of things already developed, and they are here, like technologies, materials, concepts, but for some reason it's not working on the market yet, or not as much as the other things. And I think what we are probably missing are some business masterminds who will be able to create strategies and ways to sell these kind of products more than the others. I wish it will happen.
It's kind of interesting you're saying that, because I definitely agree with that. I was just looking into research about GenZ and sustainability. And of course, like 9 out of 10 GenZ customers, they want to purchase sustainable products, but only 30% of them are willing to pay premium, and they're willing to pay only 10% premium. And I think this is where maybe the problem is kind of starting. And do you see that when you are designing, like that you have to meet a certain price point and then you are making compromise?
Yeah, this is in general with anything. That's at least what we are working on in Camper, like, or in any brand, that the development and the design brief comes with some target price, which you need to follow. Either it's sustainable or it's not. But then there are several ways how to do it. Another thing is that a part of the product, there are other ways and fields where to become more sustainable. So as I said, I feel like it should be the responsibility of all the brands, and then also finding tools how to actually measure it, because these days, like a lot of brands, they're calling their products sustainable. However, I don't see it happening. Like, I think they could do more, or and to me, sometimes the word doesn't mean what it is, you know.
I definitely agree with your greenwashing perspective. The other day, I was, for example, reading that only 14% of collections in H&M are made from sustainable materials, even though the company is trying to be on the forefront of sustainability agendas. So I think that's a very interesting thing. Sebastian, how do you incorporate sustainability into shoe design, but also into the whole workings of your whole brand? Because obviously it's not just materials, but it's running probably the whole company. So how are you making sure that, from your perspective, it's not greenwashing, as Velický is mentioning?
Well, since for our brand we only do sustainable products, we don't need to do any greenwashing because nobody cares, and we are not like a real consumer brand. But for us, the approach is completely different. Is that when we design our products, it's not our goal to have more sustainability. It's our goal is to have a nicely designed product, because we're a design brand. So for us, it has to be sustainable, but our focus is more on the design and the possibilities of sustainability, which means, for example, to my mind, the most interesting materials which are developed right now are mostly sustainable, but they also give you a completely new optics. It feels different, it looks different, and that's for us very interesting because we're very high priced. Everything is handmade in Italy for the sneakers for Net2. So it's more about doing something different, and that's what I don't understand, that the big brands like Nike and who live for marketing and limited editions and collaborations, that they don't take advantage of these developments which are going on right now, because not every project also for these companies has to be commercial and has to sell millions. In fact, most of the most limited editions, which are only 100 pairs or something, it's not about the turnover, it's about the whole brand. And for us, it's brilliant that nobody's using it like this, but it's a question why. And that's probably because the hierarchy in big companies is so big that, for example, designers are mostly not in the highest positions of a brand. So they have to justify everything they do. And in Europe, it's not like in the US. You're not really, in Germany, for example, you're not allowed to fail. If you fail with your brand or your product, people will look at you and say, oh, you failed, and it's something bad. And if you go to the States, failing means success in the future, because if you don't fail, you cannot optimize something. So it's a mentally completely different thing. Tesla wouldn't be Tesla if Elon Musk would have be afraid to fail. You have to be brave, and if you don't get the support, for example, from your chief officer, that you can fail as a designer, but you have to try new things, then you will not be able to develop something for a big company like this. Because of course you don't know, if you use a new material, maybe slate stone like we did, okay, there is a possibility that it will break and you spend a lot of time and money, and at the end the product looked nice but was not really functional. So you have to ask yourself, can I afford this as a company? Can I afford it as a designer towards my boss or towards the customers? And that's a freedom small brands have. So I think also that's something, that's a purpose why smaller brands can live and can justify their existence, because otherwise it would be enough to have 5-6 big sneaker brands, big fashion brands, big cap brands, and you don't need hundreds and thousands of brands, but you have to be disruptive. And I think the small brands are changing a lot. That's also in the collaborations. I mean, if you have Palace with Adidas, for sure the design aspect or something new is coming from Palace, which is executed very professionally by Adidas, and then you can create something new. And by these collaborations, then also things can change. I mean, if you look at the Nike Considered project 10 years ago, which was a sustainable project, which was really cool, but it failed because the product was sustainable, but it looked terrible. So nobody bought it. And that's something what was our approach, to have something which does not look sustainable and ecological, but looks cool and is sustainable at the same time. And that's something which was very difficult to execute. And it took us also years to be still street and high fashion and ecological at the same time.
Sebastian, I love that you mentioned Elon Musk. I feel we are truly at a startup event if that name is dropped. But Eliško, definitely, I would like to explore, because you said you're part of Camper Lab, which is this very exciting part of Camper, bringing up innovation to life. So how do you approach your innovation process? Because Sebastian just right now talked about his perspective. So I want to understand what it means for you as a designer to come to innovation.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank to Sebastian, because I totally agree with what he said, and also what we are seeing last years. I would say it's that big brands are definitely getting inspired by the smaller ones, who are the entrepreneurs who are like following their visions, and they are ready to make it because they really want to. And yeah, that's interesting, because in the past it was more the other way around. And then back to your question. So Camper Lab is recently, with the new art direction of Achilles, Ion Gabriel. It's more as a not separated brand, but it has like own distribution, own market, own stores, or communication, and it's a different collection than the Camper main, which has for designer and also towards the innovation, we have different, let's say, opportunities, conditions to, opportunities to work with. So we can try new materials. We are also working with different price points, so more things are possible, and definitely we are working on several new innovative technologies, which we hope that will continue for the Camper main collection. So it's like a pioneer for Camper regarding its vision and and for the design. I'm not sure if I answered well.
Definitely. Is there any material or technology or innovation you both are excited about?
For me, regarding the materials, are the fusion of like natural fibers plus the ones which are like made by man, which helps to get better properties. Like these things, these fusions are becoming really interesting these days. Like regarding the upper of the shoe, and then I hope that like recently we've been hearing a lot about like critics about leather, but I still think it's the best material for footwear, also because it's coming from the waste of other industries, so it's in the end very sustainable and it's the most durable. So I hope that in the future leather will become cool again. Because it has a sense for sure.
Me too. Sebastian?
Yeah, it's better for us because we have two lines. One is the natural line, where we use only natural products like leather, veggie tanned leathers. We even developed our own leathers. I mean, at some time we had an art project where we even used ox blood. So we use not only the leather of the animal, but also the blood. Or we have milk felt, where we recycle non-food milk, which would be normally poured away, but we can take out the fibers from the milk and combine it with wool. Then we have a natural rubber outsole, which is handmade in France, and we combine it so it's biodegradable. So on one hand, we try to do the most sustainable, advanced natural products because we think it's really important. And even as a vegan person, you can still consume leather right now if it's a good leather, because at the end it's a waste product, like plastic bottles too. I mean, people shouldn't eat as much meat, or should maybe eat no meat. If you don't eat meat, you will not have leather. So this problem would be solved. But as long as you slaughter animals, then the byproduct leather is one of the most sustainable products you can have. On the other hand, you cannot only produce leather shoes. You also have to use man-made fibers. So in this way, you can also use all the new technologies. For example, when we do vegan products and we have some really advanced recycled fibers, in this case, we would never combine it with leather, because then this combination doesn't really make sense for us. So we try to do the best, for example, vegan product, which is completely man-made, which is possible. And on the other hand, the best natural product. But we would not decide as a brand that we would do only leather products or only vegan products, because ecologically it makes no sense. It's the same, like a lot of people only pay attention that a product is vegan, but vegan doesn't mean ecological. It has to be vegan and ecological. Otherwise, every super cheap shoe from China, which you can buy in the supermarket, if the glue is also vegan, then you have a vegan product. This is nothing special. It has to be also a good product. So, and that's something I really dislike right now, that also a lot of sustainable brands, they really go on one side or the other side, and there cannot be a mix. And to my mind, it's like politically, you should find a middle way, because if you're too extreme on one side, it can never be ecological at the end. And it's nice to have a point of view, but at the end, for us, it's common sense. And what we do is common sense design, that if you have ecological materials, the shoe also has to have a high quality. Because for me, this is something I complain also about the big chain stores, is where is the purpose if you use an eco cotton and you spend a lot of time and effort to have this material, but then you combine it with a cheap outsole, poorly made, maybe even in sweatshops or something, and then it's still not an ecological product, and it's not a good product. It has to be also of good quality and fair conditions. Otherwise, why use it this way? And I recently saw one brand, and they said they are the first footwear brand that they developed the first shoe where every part of the shoe is completely certified. From the sole, everything is certified. It's certified eco cotton, it's certified circular, everything. But at the end, the shoe was an 11 euro shoe made in India under fair conditions. So socially also everything's okay. But an 11 euro shoe is an 11 euro shoe. It's not a high quality product. And it looked the same way, like if you buy a very cheap shoe in a supermarket. So for me, the question is why? Who's gonna buy this for 89 euro in the shops if it's still a cheap product with a bad fit? There was not a nice last, so it looked like a banana. But it was considered and marketed as a super ecological product. And to my mind, there was no sense. Then it would be better to just produce a PVC shoe from 100% PVC, which is really easy to recycle. That's also something a lot of people don't know. They say, I don't like PVC because it's not ecological. At the end, for example, Stella McCartney, they use a lot of pure, high quality PVC without any harmful substances, because it's easier to recycle than PU. But PU does not have a bad image, even though it's one of the worst materials you can use for sustainability. And that's the lack of knowledge also inside the industry. And that's, I think, why it's very important to have more education on the consumer side, on the industry side, on the retailer side. I can still experience every day that even our customers, a lot of customers, they cannot see the difference between leather and PU. After 20 years in the business, I mean.
Eliško, you wanted to add something?
Maybe yeah, just about the end of use of the shoe. When you mentioned the recycling, these topics are I think more complicated with footwear than apparel. because just from the basic idea of shoe, it's a complex product combined from different materials with different properties for the upper, for the outsole. Then like you need to fix everything together very well so it's durable enough, and then to be able to recycle it, to disassemble it, it's quite complicated. So the idea for the future would be the monomaterial shoe or 100% natural product, which is rather for landfill or incineration. And until we, like the mass brands are going to do these kind of shoes, I think yeah, I mean, this would be the best solution regarding the materials, when you also asked about the technologies and materials we wish they're going to be used. That's the other side, not just to wear the shoe, but also the end of the use of the product.
Mm-hmm. We are slowly wrapping up because we are running out of time, but so I will ask you for a bit shorter answers. But definitely, Eliško, you have an independent brand, which is completely awesome, and I would recommend everybody to check it out. But you also work for a big brand, a global brand. How is it different when you're designing shoes for your own brand compared to your employer?
Well, it's very different already because the strategy of both brands is very different too. Because with Kutulum, the idea is to develop products which will stay there, and we just change with some limited additions, maybe the colors or materials. But it's a way to develop something perfect, beautiful. We are 100% sure, and delivering to the people. Then with and it's amazing to work on it and to also be aware of all the process and everything, what it means to run a footwear brand, because it's very complex. It's not just the design, of course. And then working for Gamper as a designer, it's amazing opportunity because there's a lot of newness going on. It's like every season, new products. Also, as I said, I moved from several departments until the innovation team where I'm now. So I'm like learning a lot, and really I could focus on the design part while there is a really good background of technicians, of people like product managers who are providing data and all the necessary information. So I think I'm very lucky with this.
I love it. I love it. Sebastian, we got a question from the audience. Would you be willing to go through sustainability audit by companies and do it? Or were you certified that you are a completely sustainable company?
In general, yes. We also have some audits like SA8000, BSCI, but you have two different audits mostly. You have a social audit, which is like SA8000, BSCI, which has nothing to do with any ecological standards. And then you have certified materials like GOTS, RWS, but that's where you have the materials certified. And for example, to have as a shoe company, it's also very difficult to be completely audited because, for example, if you use GOTS, our office is based in Munich and we produce nothing in Munich. We produce in Italy and we produce in Spain. So if you want to be completely sustainable audited, like for example from GOTS, if you want to be a completely GOTS certified company, we would also have to make an audit for our office, which doesn't make sense because, for example, it costs about 5,000 euro per year to have our office with some tables and chairs audited. So this is also something where we have a lot of discussions with these kind of labels, that there are a lot of things which are not really common sense and which are easier if you have like a t-shirt factory and you only have 2-3 suppliers for the material and you produce the t-shirt in your factory. In our case, it's kind of the outsole factory is different from the shoe factory, from the knitting company, things like this. So it's very difficult to have everything audited. Also because of the costs, because at the end, this is minimum 6,000 euro per year. And that's a problem because that makes it almost impossible for small brands and companies to be appropriately certified. On the other hand, big companies, which maybe do 98% not sustainable things, for them it's easier to get these audits. Like IKEA a few years ago, they only used 1% FSC certified wood, but still they were an official FSC certified company. On the other hand, we only used FSC certified wood, but we were not able to get this audit because of the cost. So that's something where a lot of things also have to be done for the whole industry together to find new standards.
Thank you, Sebastian. And Eliško, last question will be directed to you. In the last panel, I talked about streetwear, how it has become mainstream, how sneakers are basically everywhere. Do you see that because you basically sell different shoe designs? I mean, you sell high heels as well. Do you see this pressure from the customer towards more casual footwear and towards sneakers in the last 2 years?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to ask about it, because as you might see, Gamper is not really a sneaker brand. Like what they do and what they do sell are more shoes for actually clients who are searching for something else than sneaker, something hype or contemporary, which is not the classic sneaker. So even I would say more like high snowbite, irrelevant release from Kiko Kostadinov. This collaboration happened like 2 years ago. Even this one was not like the typical sneaker one, you know. So I'm more like connected to this market, which is finding something hype, but not the classic sneaker from Asics or Nike or these hype collaborations.
I love it.
Definitely what I see is that people want also things which are functional, like all these cool outdoor brands which have shoes with like technical performance, apart from the design, are doing really cool stuff recently. So I agree with the guys what they said in the previous panel about outdoor actually.
Yeah, I'm excited as well about the outdoor. I just saw the list of High Snobiety and list what are the upcoming brands. And those were basically all the brands that my father wears when he goes to the forest. It was like Arc'teryx, Salomon, and all those. And I think we will definitely see a rise in that. And thank you for saying it, because it nicely wraps up our conversation. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, Eliška, for joining me. It was really lovely. Sebastian, hi to your son. Thank you. Thank you for joining as well. And thank you, and see you around very soon, I guess. Thank you.
Yes. It was nice talking to you. Bye.
Thank you very much for watching us. Now we have 2 pitches from very exciting startups coming up. One is connecting from Helsinki, another one is connecting from London. So very much international audience just right now, and also international startups.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. How is it in London?
It's okay. It's a bit miserable today and a little bit rainy, but
as you would expect from England, as always, but good.
Okay, guys, I will offer you 5 minutes for your pitch for public fiber, and then I will be following up with questions. But the 5 is yours.
Sure. Okay, let me just share my screen.
We've just got something to share with you guys. Hopefully you can see this presentation, yeah? Can you guys?
No, we can't see it yet. They connected me in order to make jokes until you figure this out. So I hope we will work on that. Is the share screen and so on. But meanwhile,
we're just going to change it. I mean, I can start to give you a bit of a background on where we are before we start sharing the screen, because it's having technical difficulties. But we're public fiber, so from London we sort of launched last year. I think the idea between kind of launching us and where we started is because we recognized that there was a bit of a white space or a gap in the market for someone to be starting to communicate sustainability and fashion in a kind of combination that reflects real interest from real consumers and real people, and people much like us who love fashion, who want to consume fashion, who want to kind of experience it and want to be a part of it. but unfortunately we couldn't really find that ourselves. It actually came from our want and a desire in a space that we weren't finding. I'm hoping that you can see the screen that's popped up now.
No. Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Let's go, baby. Okay, here we go. Sorry guys, thank you, but Marius, I'll let you take it.
Better late than never. So yeah, I hope you haven't eaten into our time too much. So yeah, we're Public Fiber. We're a London-based menswear marketplace focusing on sustainable, ethical, and conscious fashion and well-being brands. So we're very much in our infancy. We've been active for just under a year, and we're really focusing on building a collective of brands that not only educate and inspire shoppers to be better for themselves and the planet, but they never compromise on their aesthetic or the design. So very kind of following a similar sort of narrative to what the guys were talking about in the panel just now. And some of you might be thinking, you know, God, not another marketplace. But you know, really, what we'll take you on today is a little bit of a journey of Public Fiber and a bit of an insight into who we are as people, but also our brand and our ambition, which really kind of, you know, the marketplace function is really just what our core business is, but we expand much further beyond that. So our vision or our mission for Public Fiber is very much to portray the future and invite people to buy a piece of our vision. So really what we mean by that is, you know, our founding team are ex-advertising people. So we understand communication, we understand marketing. And for a long time, sustainability has very much been marketed quite badly by brands, you know, really not focusing on the aesthetic or the design or even the brand and how it makes their customers feel, but only really kind of creating a product out of some materials that, you know, maybe like the previous speakers were saying, were vegan or you know, less environmentally harmful than their predecessors. We started, like many fashion brands do, as an Instagram page, curating brands that we found large and small, from Pangaea right through to brands based in London like Elliott Footwear, just really kind of building our community, talking about the brands, digging into what makes them sustainable, but also really kind of highlighting their aesthetic and their design qualities. And we're now a premium online store. So we're in the process of launching a new website, which launches in just under a month's time, which you'll be able to shop all of the brands that we'll kind of take you through and that we communicate on our Instagram page. But yeah, that's just kind of a bit of an overview of the brand.
Yeah, and as we said, we're trying to differentiate ourselves, not just be a marketplace. We are an e-commerce platform selling a variety of different sustainable, ethical, conscious fashion well-being brands. But some of the foundation principles that we like to differentiate ourselves from competitors and from other brands is really relying in the perspective in discovery and collaboration. And what that perspective means is that you see people, we've all been speaking about it as well, talking around sustainability and talking about what it means to be sustainable. And I'm quite frankly kind of bored of the conversation of people saying, stop buying new clothes, rewear all your old clothes, recycle these clothes, patch them up, stitch them up and buy vintage. You, us, we all like to engage with fashion, and fashion is an important part of ourselves. It's a creative expression of ourselves. So how can we communicate sustainability within fashion, high fashion, streetwear differently than others? So we look at kind of writing individual pieces and thought leadership pieces around made to order, for example, and how the shift of kind of hype culture and drop culture could be made more sustainable by becoming a made to order sort of model, a pre-order model, where you have only a few amount of slots to fill. And when you fill those slots, that demand is supplied and there is nothing left. So that is a different and innovative approach on it, as well as sharing kind of designers and artists within that film as well, in that field as well. So from a discovery perspective, we also bring together kind of the most interesting and brands that are uncompromising, as Mario said, in their approach to sustainability and ethics, but also design and aesthetic. That is kind of the core foundation of us. You see all these brands here, you know, these are brands that you would sort of want to be affiliated with, that you're excited about, and they're aspirational, but actually they're all founded on these principles of responsibility. And actually, sort of a core foundation of that, as well as we like brands that look good and feel good, right? We want to interact, it's creatively expressing ourselves, but we have a kind of thorough sustainability audit, which looks at brands from the materials, the use, the production, to the disposability, to the responsibility of this brand as a whole. So it's really built on a foundation of sustainability.
And I'll be super quick because I know we're running out of time, but I think this is probably a really interesting place for us to finish in terms of what's been discussed today, both in terms of streetwear and then in terms of sustainability. And, you know, we kind of try to actively push and collaborate with different brands and charities. An example here is a campaign we launched around Black Friday around buying more rubbish, where we collaborated with an ocean cleanup charity, and we sold the top 10 ocean polluters, face masks, aluminium cans, crisp packets, etc., branded in this kind of high fashion streetwear aesthetic, and all the proceeds went towards taking trash out of our oceans, basically. We were covered in Hypebeast, Tomorrow Magazine, Drapers, loads of coverage. You can Google it, read about it. And then finally, before we finish, really the next big thing for Public Fiber is we have this amazing collection of brands. How can we really dive into who they are, their kind of, you know, their fundamentals, their foundations, and actually communicate their sustainable credentials in a really interesting way through collaborative products? And that's something we're working on at the moment. And we can't say too much, but if you follow us and follow our journey, we'll be announcing that very soon. So follow us on Instagram, and thank you very much for listening.
I'll be definitely following you, and I'm already in love. So the question is definitely not only on my mind is, when are you going international, or do you ship internationally?
So yeah, I mean, we ship internationally, of course. Brexit, great, but that comes as a bit of a challenge. But yeah, we have a variety of brands, a lot of British brands, but we also have brands from Berlin, from Copenhagen, from Stockholm, you know, so definitely more sort of European focused, and we do ship internationally. As Marius said, we're launching our new site. We have a site running, publicfiber.com. It's great, but we're launching a new site with some more brands at the sort of first week of April. So keep an eye out for that, because that'll be exciting. But yeah, we ship internationally, and we've got brands from all over.
And definitely there are a lot of young designers watching us, and I think they would be most delighted to be able to sell to your customers. So what is the process? What kind of brands are you looking for? You know, are you up for even the new up and coming early stage brands? And
yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. You know, we were just looking at London Fashion Week right now, and there's loads of young emerging designers who are, you know, very small, who we'd love to introduce and include in our platform. I mean, that's really what Public Fiber was founded upon. It was discovery and really giving spotlight to some of these new emerging brands which were, you know, challenging the status quo and doing something differently. So by all means, anyone watching, send us an email, Marius, Stefan at Public Fiber. You know, we'd love to chat. You know, in terms of aesthetic and design, you can kind of see from some of the images that we included, but I'm dubious about using the word streetwear. I think it is overused sometimes. I'd say some of our pieces are leaning on being streetwear, but you know, I wouldn't say that's what defines us. We're just very kind of contemporary in our cuts and our fits. You know, a bit Scandinavian, but definitely taking cues from streetwear as well. So yeah, but by all means, please get in touch with us. We'd love to have you.
Okay, and last but not least, since we're at a startup business conference, are you currently raising any money, and what's kind of your step into that direction when it comes to investment? Because, you know, if I were an investor, you guys have my heart.
Well, hopefully there's some investors on this call.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? At the moment, like Stefan said, we're working on a new website, which is fully automated, a much sleeker design, a much easier user experience. So that's something that we've managed to fund ourselves. But absolutely, I mean, you know, we really want to bring the Public Fiber brand to life, both through experience in retail, pop-up stores in London and other cities, and also through our own products. So, you know, I'm sure plenty of people on the call know Kith. I wouldn't put it in writing. I'm sure this is being recorded, but you know, we very much have the aspiration of being the sustainable Kith, and we want to build equity around Public Fiber as a brand that really drives change. And I think that force of being able to connect all these amazing brands from Europe and in the future wider territories is an incredibly powerful proposition for really driving positive change in an industry.
Definitely. Thank you, guys. Thank you for bringing sustainability into menswear, and looking forward to seeing you anytime soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Have a lovely evening. See you later.
We will have another startup presenting in a minute, coming from Helsinki.
Kippis. Cheers from Helsinki. Yeah, cold and freezing Helsinki.
Okay. Could you share your screen? Does it work? So
have a look.
I know how much stand-up comedy I need to do before we are live.
Let's see. Let's see. There we go. Do you see it?
Okay, so your 5 minutes are yours. Then we will chat a bit about your future.
Howdy ho. Last but not least, I will be here to help you with your last mile. You know, the companies are sustainable at their headquarters, their production side of things, but then you need to ship the goods to the end consumer. And this is our cup of tea, so to speak. So I'm representing a company called Repack, and we are reusable and returnable packaging material for e-commerces. So our mission is to get rid of trash from e-commerce. So you can cut the crap with the Repack service. Our Repack service comes with 3 parts. First one is the reusable packaging itself. Then we have a global free return. So basically, once you receive your goods, the consumer can and return the package back to us free of charge anywhere in the world. And we incentivize the end consumer to return these bags. And once the bags are returned, they get a reward from the brands to purchase more, donate to charity, whatever the brand itself wants to do with us. So how does Repack work? We always talk about cycles. Everything works in cycles with us. So basically, up top here on the first place here is that the brand replaces the single-use packaging with Repack. So they ship the goods with Repacks. The customer receives the goods. So then we have 2 ways. First is to the customer is unsatisfied or wrong size or whatever, wants to return the bag. He or she then uses the normal process that the brand has, returns the goods with the Repack back to the brand, and the brand can then reuse the bag again for free of charge. And if the customer is happy with the product, he or she then keeps the product, and the Repack itself folds into letter size flat thing that he or she returns to the mailbox. No need to write any delivery addresses, anything. There's a ready-made flap there with the return instructions. Drop it into any mailbox anywhere in the world, and it comes free of charge back to us, where we're gonna be inspecting them, cleaning them, and returning them back into the cycle. So this is a one Repack cycle. Today we work mostly in Europe and in Northern America. And one of the finest and nicest things about Repack is that the same service can be applied to giants like Zalando, H&M, Salomons, or tiny brands like, I wouldn't actually call them tiny, but you know, smaller brands like Mucha in Finland. So the same service in the principle works for giants and the small ones. As easy. The packaging itself, we always have their ID tagged. So we know always whereabouts of each bag, where they are, the condition of the bag. And this is something that you quite often forget when we talk about recycling. Recycling is something that everybody understands, but once you drop the cardboard box or plastic box in the recycling bin, it's sort of like out of sight, out of mind. And the unfortunate truth is that most of them will be burned or buried in a landfill. And this is where reusing product is actually a way better for the environment and way better for all of us. And this is a comparison between Repack and a cardboard box. So in the first row, you see the production of a cardboard box against the reback. It's about the same when they produced, but every single time when the reback is recirculated, they've gone through the whole loop, they only produces 36 grams of CO2 emission, which is equivalent of shipping a letter. And this is the winning game. So once you at the normally reback is used minimum of 20 times. So if you ship goods with cardboard 20 times, you produce nearly 3 kilos of trash, and the CO2 emission is 4.4 kilos. And the same amounts with reback is nearly zero trash, and you save 80% of the CO2 emissions. So it's a massive impact in reusing. And again, you know, if we talk about the cycles, the cycle has a price, and the price is per size. So it starts from 275 till 350. And before you jump up and down and say, "Ooh, that sounds expensive," you need to think about, again, like what is included in the service. Is the bag itself, is the global free return, cleaning and returning back into the cycle. And what's the best part of the whole thing is that it actually can be free for you as a brand. So this depends on how you offer it to your customers. Most of our customers offer it as an option where the end consumer chooses the bag, and they choose it against a fee. And this fee is normally the same fee as the brand would pay for the bag. So ta-da, free of charge for you. Or then we have those brave ones that actually take the cost for themselves and ship everything with repacks, and they take a stand for the planet and take a stand for more cleaner shipping methods. So they're the heroes in this game. Here's how you look at the repack when you receive it, and bear in mind that when you buy something online, when the customer receives the goods, that's the only time they actually have something tangible from you. The only time when they touch and feel something. And with repack, you can actually make it into amazing customer experience. You explain what you do, what your brand stands for, and by the consumer returning the bag, they participate in the saving game, so to speak. So they will be happy. So that's why we always say good vibes guaranteed. And the previous panel talked about this quite a lot, that the COVID has had a massive impact on shopping and online shopping in general. And this has had a massive impact on us on two ways. First is that we get loads and loads of positive feedback from the end consumers, being happy that, okay, we can actually even drop this at the mail service place or the postal place where they receive the goods, take out the shoes and put it back in there. So they don't need to deal with the crap and trash that actually most of the times they receive. And our selling process has been fairly easy at the moment because of the negative feedback the brands get from the end consumers about the shipping material. So we get minimum of 20, 50 inbound emails per day from brands to asking to help to make their shipping logistics more sustainable. We're extremely easy to get started. You basically choose how do you offer the repack to your customers, order the bags, follow our technical guidelines, which are fairly simple, and start repacking. Simple as that. I can actually stop here. We don't need to go any further from here. So did I do it under the 5 minutes?
Samuli, thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
You're
I'm very
welcome.
excited. Do you have anybody actually in Central Eastern Europe that is using your solution? Because I understand like Scandinavian brands are very open to any sustainable solutions, but have you gone further than?
There's a let's say that we're experiencing this ketchup bottle effect at the moment. Like there's a few giants starting up this year, which will, take us into the more general public's view. I don't personally deal with the you just requested that area, so I'm not familiar with all the brands, but we're working pretty much every single country in Europe. And as I said, we are the only reusable packaging that can be returned globally anywhere in the world. So we're open for business for anyone. And our origin comes from sort of like not copying, but finding the great things about Scandinavian bottle return system. So that's been sort of like what we look up to, where the idea came from.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I come from the Czech Republic, from Prague, and we have this bottle system return, and it's been running for ages, and I think it's working really well. So it's great to have that inspiration. Also, you have talked about the customer reaction, but is it difficult to kind of persuade the customer that this is the right choice, that they maybe should take an extra step to return, or are they all really excited and like, yeah, let's be sustainable?
That's a really quick question, because like we have two ways. Some ship everything in repack, and I think it was in the previous panel that maybe you said that less than 10% are willing to pay for the premium. When they receive it as a surprise, they all absolutely love it. When they have to pay for it, I would say it goes half and half. Half the people are ready for it. It's more about like people understand what recycling means. They think that they understand it, but reuse is still a new word, and it's a new concept per se. So it's the matter of brands coming together, the end consumers understanding and willing to pay a little premium for it, because this is, let's face the fact that it's impossible to do without the fee. So otherwise it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. Is there anything you would like to, address our listeners with, either the shops or investors or anything?
I don't know, peace to the world and, happiness and all this kind of stuff. I'm going to sauna after this, and I'll be enjoying my evening at least.
I love it.
Well, we're open for investments as well.
Okay.
Go for it. Go crazy.
I wanted to hear. Okay, thank you very much for joining us from all the way from Finland. And last but not least, I would like to sum it up. So today I have been in the panel of streetwear influencers, streetwear retailers, streetwear resellers, who are definitely shaping their industry. Then I talked to two footwear designers about their sustainability practices, and we had a few startup pitches coming from London and Helsinki. And I have made a few notes what to take away from those sessions that we had today. I made it symbolically 6, so I keep up with the 6 facts that I had at the beginning. For me, number 1 is definitely how young generation is shaping the industry. I have mentioned that already 50% of luxury shoppers are under the age of 30, and what they are requesting are different behaviors from brands, different expectations what they have from brands. So that's definitely number 1. Number 2, we have discussed a lot sustainability. It was not only during our pitches, but it was also during all the panels that word was brought up. And it's because Gen Z is very much driving sustainability, but the question is, how much are they willing to pay extra? And if it's not only greenwashing from the side of the brands, but if they really mean it, and if it's something that can be a unique selling proposition for them, and if the customer is willing to react. And I think that was really interesting for me to see how much small brands are putting into innovation and what is maybe the reality and expectation in streetwear. Number 3, definitely digital. We have been discussing COVID and its impact. I have already said that 1/3 of fashion executives expect COVID to be driving digital in their environments, and that is supposed to be the biggest opportunity. I definitely loved the word internet wear that Petter introduced in the first panel. How people are still shopping for clothes, but shopping for clothes that they are showcased on the internet, not maybe in the streets. And I think that's a lovely word to use here. Number 4, what's my takeaway? I think it's getting worse and worse to cut through the noise. Like there's so much advertising, so many interesting releases, so many interesting collaborations. And just to make it as a general release or make it as a collaboration that's maybe not the most exciting one is becoming tougher and tougher. And I think it's becoming tougher and tougher to be a small brand. I have already talked about how big brands are taking over and basically like kind of killing the small brands. But I very much loved what Tomáš was debating in the first panel, how he was telling the small brands to really find their unique perspective, really find their unique product market fit and go after it. And I think Sebastian and Eliška showed that it's very much possible if you find your choice. 5th one, we talked about how fashion is a creative expression and how really people feel that fashion makes them part of a community. It makes them who they are. It's part of their identity. And we will be seeing brands build on that part more and more, outside fashion, inside fashion. And I think that notion of something that is like how fashion is much connected to your culture and a sense of self is going to be very prominent in this one. And last but not least, we were talking about how streetwear is now going into outdoor, how we see more and more outdoor brands emerging. We talked about ACG, Salomon, Arc'teryx, all the other outdoor brands that are really up and coming and very much hyped, and that is very interesting. I think luxury is definitely the next one to do. Kovo has mentioned that on the panel that he's very excited about the collaborations that come from high brands with the streetwear brands. It was like the Louis Vuitton Supreme collaboration, so I think that is interesting. And definitely we have covered resell as more of the commoditization of the items, so that we will be looking at sneakers in the same way we are looking maybe at the barrels of oil or maybe shares of Boeing. And I think with all the development in technology, that is definitely going to be something to look at and to look at as a perspective. So I would like to very much thank my speakers. I would ask move me to the next one, because I would like to invite you as a closing remark. Next slide, please. To our next Fashion Disrupt is going to be dedicated to luxury. We have already discussed that. Kovo mentioned that as an exciting opportunity coming up. So I will see you on June 16. We already have a few confirmed speakers for that one coming from big international brands. So I'm very excited to talk to them about what luxury means, how young generation is shaping luxury industry, and how fashion brands can work with the business of aspiration that they're creating around themselves. So my name is Pavlína Louženská. I'm really, really happy that you were following us the whole time. Thank you, Startup Disrupt, for following us, for providing us with a platform. And thank you, Michal Mucha, for helping us organize everything together. And thank you all for watching us. Thank you, Footshop, for supporting us on the journey, and see you on June 16.